Katesha Breland is a Charleston native, a longtime North Charleston resident, and a real estate broker. Now she wants to add North Charleston City Councilwoman to her resume. She tells me why she's running for the open seat on North Charleston City Council to represent District 5 for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Katesha Breland, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are a Charleston native, a longtime North Charleston resident, and a real estate broker. And of course, people like myself and others have seen your signs up and down Dorchester Road because you are a candidate for North Charleston's District 5 seat. So tell me, Ms. Katesha, why this? Why now?
Because it's necessary. We definitely need, District 5 has been without representation, as you know. The seat is vacant and we have a special election coming up on May 27th. So, the community just needs representation. We need leadership that has a strong ethical voice. We also need a leader that's willing to prioritize the needs of the community. And so, I live here, I work here, I raise my kids here. So this is important to me. So this is why I'm running.
What exactly, when you look around District 5, what exactly, I should ask this, Ms. Katesha, what exactly does that district consist of as far as population and where it's located?
So this is along the Dorchester Road corridor. It starts right at I-26 in Dorchester Road, and it proceeds down Dorchester Road past Michaud Parkway, which is the entrance to the airport. So you have neighborhoods like Dorchester Wayland, Brentwood, Glen Terrace, Wanda Woods, Evanston Estates, Covington Hills, North Point, Bon Air, and Jericho and Ashley. So it covers a pretty good area.
Wow. So when you look at those different neighborhoods, and I know all of them because I pass by all the time on my bicycle or going up to my house where I live in District 1, but what exactly are the priorities right now?
So one, community engagement. The priority really is to be able to restore trust. When you have something like this that has taken place, happen in the district, people kind of fall back. They just don't feel like their voices matter. They don't feel as if what their needs in the community are of concern. So one, we have to start by restoring trust. And then once we start to restore trust in what we're doing or how we're going about doing it is really community engagement. You have to get the people engaged or, re-engage them as to what's happening in the community and make them feel like they're a priority.
What exactly is happening in District 5 right now, Ms. Katesha?
So as of right now, we're having an issue with housing. This is a big issue across the Low Country. Affordable housing. It's finding property in the North Charleston area is hard, but even more so if you do find something, the price point for a lot of the properties and a lot of people just can't afford it. So those that have been residents of District 5 for years and have, they live in this area and they know how everything works in this area. And so, especially for those that does not have transportation, how does this work? What does this look like for them when the rents increase and they can no longer afford what they, where they are, then they're forced out of these areas. So we need to work to kind of retain the housing in the area so that these people can continue to thrive in their areas. One of the things that we also need to do is the labor force. We need to work to increase the labor force, work to increase the pay. And then we also have other things that happen in the area so far as safety. Safety is a big issue in a lot of the communities, especially in this district. We have traffic congestion. We have infrastructure concerns. So we have a lot that's happening in this area.
Break it down because I just wrote down what you were saying as you were talking to me. Let's begin with housing. Let me ask you this because you are a real estate broker. You know more about this than anybody else in the area. But what exactly does District 5 need, Ms. Katesha? Is it affordable housing? Is it attainable housing? Or is it workforce housing?
We need it all. We need it all. This is a very diverse district. We have properties on the water in a lot of the neighborhoods which people are unaware of. There are several neighborhoods that have waterfront properties. And then you have low income residents. So we go from here to here, and you have to have somebody that's able to advocate for everybody, which I'm a people's person. I'm for the people. And I'm able to do this because this is what I've done all these years. I'm here advocating for people with home ownership, helping them to achieve the American dream. So I want to be able to help everyone. And when you get to the areas, like I mentioned, um, where there's increase in rents, what do we do to help these people? You have people that are just barely making it. So when you have an increase in the rent, what happens with that? How do we control that? So, there are organizations that have resources that are trying to assist people with remaining in their homes. But because there's so much of a need, we still need so much more assistance.
How much has rent increased in the District 5 area over the past 5 years?
So, tremendously. Let me give you an example. Let's take Dorchester Wayland, for example. This was the area that was primary rental properties. And so you would have affordable rents. And what I mean by that is you may have a 2-bedroom that was about 850, 900. Now, a 2-bedroom in that area could be about 1,500. So if you have somebody that's in the area that's paying 850, and then the landlord comes and say, hey, I'm going to do a rent increase, and this rent increase could be another $500 or $600, that makes a difference. That makes a difference. A lot of us are budgeted as to where our finances, what's coming in versus what's going out. And so when you have this type of increase, it really hurts a lot of individuals. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it whereas you have families that are moving in together just to afford the rents, and so this is just base rent in some of these communities where you have a 2-bedroom that's, $1,200 to $1,500. Of course, anything that has additional amenities, you're paying a whole lot more.
Let me stay on that, Ms. Katesha, because where do you see it the most? Do you see more people renting in your area or more people buying homes in your area?
So, great question. That's the diversity within the neighborhoods within this district. You have both. You have properties or neighborhoods that people are able to purchase in. And then you have another area where, like I said, it's primarily rentals. So, and what happens in situations like this here, you end up getting all of it. You have neighborhoods now where people maybe moving out to another area or whatever the case may be. So they're renting their homes. So that's where rental properties become available to you. Then you have families that are moving out or downsizing, seniors that are moving out of their homes and their properties become available for sale. So we have mixed things that's happening here.
So how many rental properties do you actually have in District 5?
A lot of it. To give you a great number, I don't have that information right in front of me, but I think that I think we probably have just a equal amount of homeowners versus home renters.
So, okay, well, let me ask you this, and you know more about this as well than anybody else. Airbnbs are popping up around here in the Low Countries, it. Do you see that as an increase for your area? Or do you see more of those coming into your area as the growth continues to push up that area?
I have seen a lot more in my area, but I also believe that there was an ordinance that caps the amount of those properties in the areas too. But yes, to answer your question, I have seen a lot more of those type of properties.
And I know, Ms. Katesha, you talked obviously about some of these, elderly people selling their houses and turning it into rental properties. So do
Mhm.
you see more younger people moving into your district, or is it mostly elderly people?
So again, you have a mixture. Some of the communities have single family ranch style homes. So you have a lot of people who are looking for that. They're downsizing from 2-story properties into one level. So then you'll have these individuals that are moving in for that purpose. You also have younger families that are moving into these neighborhoods as well. They don't mind the older homes because most of the properties in these areas are at least 40 years old plus, right? And so you do have the younger families that don't mind having properties with character, maybe a bigger lot size. A lot of people move into our neighborhoods because of location. Where we're located, we're like 10 to 15 minutes from everywhere, minus the traffic, and they're great neighborhoods. However, perfect example, my neighbor recently moved out. They had a child, and this child isn't hadn't even reached a year old. They moved out of the neighborhood because they were concerned about the schools for their child. So that's an important thing to taking the question like, yes, you have younger people moving into the areas, but are they going to remain if we don't improve the schools within our district?
Okay, so what type of schools do you need right now to keep up with that growth and retain those residents?
So we do have some of the we have some magnet schools in the area. We do have some public schools that need addressing, and a lot of people now are homeschooled too. I just thought about that, but so and I think there is, I don't know, what is it? Brentwood, an academy now. I'm not familiar. I'm sorry.
Oh, no
I
worries.
don't
Yeah,
have school age kids anymore, so I'm not so, up to date as to
sure,
what's happening or whatever
sure,
else. But just from conversations like this here, like the one I told you with my neighbor,
sure.
when these things, conversations come up, people are concerned. And if they don't see where it benefits them, yes, they leave the neighborhood.
Wow. Because of those issues, how many people, Miss Katisha, have actually left that neighborhood, well, your district, and moved to someplace else?
Well, I don't have that number in hand, but I know of a couple of people that have moved for various reasons. Um, some are looking for better school districts, some are just looking for, more walkable type areas, more green spaces. So at that point, it's personal preference.
When it comes to that, obviously infrastructure and green space, what exactly should be the city's 5-point plan to improve that?
Well, we're kind of limited where we are in this district. Like I said, this district has existed for many years, and what we have is pretty much what we have. So being able to create more green spaces at this point means that we're going to have to remove something. And what does that mean? Are we tearing down properties? Well, we definitely don't want to do that because we're trying to provide more housing. So in order for us to create more green spaces in that aspect, those are some of the things that you would have to take. But, we don't necessarily have to do that because we have parks and recs throughout the district. So we just need to improve what we have. If I answered your question, I think it was two part. What was the other part of that question?
Oh, yes, ma'am. What exactly should be the city's plan to improve the green space and infrastructure in your district, particularly the existing infrastructure?
So when it comes down to the infrastructure, I feel like, we're in North Charleston, and who doesn't want to be in North Charleston? I mean, we have the airport here, we have the port here, we have the rail system here. Eventually, we'll probably have the cruise system coming back to our area. So it's advantageous for businesses to want to do business in this area. It's attractive for them as well. So when we have these new businesses come in, I would like to see some type of impact fee that they pay in order to do business in the city. And then we can use those funds to improve our roads and to improve things for our residents. That would
Would
be
you
my hope.
would you be in favor of them obviously putting any money down for, say, more sidewalks?
Yes, absolutely. If there was a way to attract these businesses and, retain funds that improve our community, which could be sidewalks, they could even contribute to a fund for affordable housing because when they come into the neighborhoods or whatever else, or they come into this area, you're pulling from our resources here too. So why not pour back into the neighborhood? So, a lot of these jobs, a lot of these companies are recruiting for employers and employees, and so they're in our areas. These are the people who are moving into these areas in order to be able to work for a lot of these employers. And so, these are some of the things that are driving up property value, the prices of rent, all of this stuff here, demand. Once we start to get into high demand for more rental properties, more apartments for people to be closer to work, whatever else, that drives up the demand for it and increases the prices.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down right there, Miss Katesha. So let me just ask you then, how many jobs do you need right now to keep up with that demand for the next 5, 10, 15 years?
So unfortunately, Quintin, I just don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers, but I know what the needs are. These are conversations that we've been having for a long time, and we're trying to get to a point where as we're able to address and resolve some of the issues that we have. So far as the numbers, I haven't retained that information, but just really focus on what the needs are.
No worries.
So as of right now, the labor force is pretty stable in our area. But again, like I said, with all that's coming to the area, we anticipate more growth, right? We anticipate more people coming to the area, which people are moving to the area. There's probably 28 people moving per day to the area. But then you also have more employers that are wanting to come to the area. So, what do we do with all this? When we talk about this type of stuff, we're looking at more growth, right? So what do we do? And I think that we can use these type of things to our advantages, by one, starting with more courses, education, job training for, people to have better skill sets so that they could get greater jobs, earn more money. And then when they earn more money, and I know I'm taking you down a rabbit hole, when they're able to earn more money, then that allows them, more affordability when it comes down to housing. So I think it just all goes together, but we just have to work together in order to get to a better place for our people, for our residents.
What exactly do the residents need from an employment standpoint and from an educational standpoint?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Yes, ma'am. What exactly do the residents need from an educational and an employment standpoint?
I keep hearing education, but I can't hear the other part.
Oh, no worries. Yes, ma'am. When it comes to obviously the job force and obviously the workforce, I should say, what exactly do the residents need when it comes to education and employment?
So they need skill sets. They need to be able to know how to do the jobs that are being offered here. We have companies here like Bowen and Volvo that's here. And I know that, at some of the technical schools, they have programs to kind of help you prepare for these jobs. But we still need a lot more than that. At one time, I remember the high schools used to offer trade programs. That way, when you left high school, you knew exactly how to do this particular trade or that particular trade that allow you to go into the workforce. And a lot of people have made a great living doing that. I think that we need to bring some of those things back. Education is always important. Is you can never have enough of it. It continues to elevate you. So yes, if we have more job trainings for the companies that are coming to the area to be able to help people to get these jobs, these people could benefit from it because they're learning a different skill set and they're possibly higher earnings.
Right. So, what particular ideal program do you want to partner with Charleston County School District and Trident Technical College, for instance, on with this particular issue?
Well, like I said, I believe that Trident Tech probably has some things in place or whatever else. We just need to have a little bit more of it. We need to make it a little bit more accessible to our residents. There's a lot that we need, but it's a start. It's a start for us to offer these programs, maybe some type of free training for it, or some type of incentive if you're able to complete the program that you could start on this job with some probationary period I mean, I'm certain there's ways to go about doing it. You know, there's a lot of case studies of things that have happened in other areas that we can just learn from this and just duplicate it. You don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, right? You just kind of see how it's been done somewhere else, and then we just try to implement it here in order to advance our community as well.
All right, I want to get back to that in just a second. But
Sure.
what incentives should be ideal for the businesses that want to come into District 5 and make the community better?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of advantages for a business to come into District 5. I just think that we should take advantage of the incentives that can come back to us by once you attract these businesses to the area, how to use these incentives in order to be able to help us, the community, the city of North Charleston. And I think I stated it before, like we could create funds that, you know, um, are used for housing, but then we can also provide the businesses with some type of incentive for doing business in North Charleston. If they're hiring from the workforce program that we created, maybe there's some type of incentive to the business for doing that. It's just it's so much that's there, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but you know, I'm 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 here because it's really about bettering our community, just trying to move us forward, get us to a better place. And so that's the reason why I'm here.
And would you be in favor of using some of the block grant money for some of these initiatives?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, there
Yes,
are
ma'am.
resources, available to us now to help. It's just not enough of it. There's greater need than there are resources.
Well, let me ask you this. If you were to get on North Charleston City Council, how would you, Ms. Katesha, as a councilwoman, actually put a line item in the budget for capital projects in your district?
Well, first of all, like you said, if I am fortunate enough to be chosen to be a part of city council, you have to evaluate what's there. I think a lot of people have this idea that you can just come in and you can make these changes right away or whatever else. You have to identify what's there. And once you identify what's there, you can also present what the needs are. And identifying what the needs are, then at that point, you could kind of pay attention to where the resources are and if there's availability for you to get it from what's currently within our city budgets now. What resources do we have? What funds do we have for these things? And then maybe we can move, shift things around. And if we see there's no funding, then at that point we can continue to try to pull in funding from other resources. But that's just a difficult thing to say when you're not familiar with what's there. As of right now, that there's line items for everything that's happening with the city, and they're still in need of funds themselves, in order to operate. So it's all about, I guess, evaluating, what's there, trying to understand, and then taking action.
Now, the city of North Charleston currently has, I believe, over $160 million in its budget. Have you, Ms. Katisha, ever actually managed a budget like that?
Yes, I have. I have. So I was president of the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors. And I'm sorry, let me take that back because you said billion. So did you say billion or was I just thinking
Oh,
big?
no, 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 a million. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So, and we had a pretty big budget or whatever else. And so being able to manage those funds and knowing exactly where everything goes, whatever, that's an important job. And I was able to do that. So I've been a part of that for maybe 4 years, I think, paying attention, monitoring the budget and, making sure funds are allocated properly. So yes, yes.
And I know in the city's recent budget, there obviously was some surplus. Where was that in the budget from your perspective?
I'm not sure.
Now,
I'm not familiar with that.
okay. Now, have you been able to look at the budget?
So I was a part of the budgeting meeting. I sat in on it, but of course I didn't have access to what they were seeing. I was only able to listen in. And so, I don't feel like I have enough information to comment on that based off of just what I heard.
Now, how exactly do you hope to invest in workforce? Because you mentioned workforce early in this interview. How do you hope to invest in workforce in this particular city budget if you're elected councilwoman?
So, like I said, outside sources, outside funding. Maybe we can get this type of funding from new businesses. New businesses that's coming into the area, whatever the case may be. Like I said, maybe we could, start enforcing some type of impact fee. Something that pulls from these new businesses, but yet gives back to the community into these workforce situations or whatever the case may be. So, what we know is there's funding. It's just a matter of where it is and how we go about doing it. But like I said, being a part of some other state network type things and just learning about, different case studies or whatever as to how things are done, this is where you learn from it. So for me, it's all about collaborating. You don't always have to have all of the answers. You just have to know who has the answer and work with those people in order to achieve whatever goal you're trying to meet.
Now, how exactly are taxes applied in the city of North Charleston?
Well, from what I understand, most of the funding for the city of North Charleston are coming from property taxes. We're paying property taxes, and that's where most of the money for North Charleston is coming from.
And so, do you know what the city's fund balance is right now?
No, I don't.
Okay. Uh, okay, let me ask you this. You mentioned some of those older neighborhoods in District 5. So, where would you put in the budget to help retrofit most of these older neighborhoods?
So that's another thing.
Hmm.
Again, there are initiatives that's happening in other municipalities that are able to help some of um, I'm sorry, there's other initiatives in other municipalities that are helping to fund um, properties, especially those that are owned by seniors. And so that's one of the priorities for me too. Like I want to see that happen in North Charleston. And again, I know that there are companies out there or agencies that are assisting with that. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I want to be able to see a lot of these seniors that have been in their homes for 40 or 50 years and are now on a fixed income who are incapable of making the necessary repairs for their properties. I would like to see some type of fund to be able to assist them with that, whether it's a new roof or new windows or whatever minor repairs. And if we're able to find funding to help with these things, then we also continue to improve the property values of our community as well. So, like I said, I'm aware of municipalities that are currently doing that, providing that. And I know that there's like a lot of nonprofits that are assisting with that. So that's one of the things that I want to dig a little deeper into and see if those opportunities are available here in District 5.
Question: what is the typical property value there in District 5?
So right now, of course, it's neighborhood by neighborhood, right? Each neighborhood kind of has its own value, retain its own value. And so currently, the price point is probably right about 330 in most neighborhoods around here on average.
Wow.
Yes, and that's your 3 bedroom, 2 bath home.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and what could be your plan for, District 5 as far as vertical growth?
So I would love to see these huge parking lots. Like, we have these shopping centers that's underutilized, doesn't have any out parcels or anything like that. And we just see a whole bunch of concrete. I would love to see these type of properties have some type of vertical development. Maybe we can go to a mixed use type thing where you have businesses on the bottom and residences on top. So I think in my little creative mind, I think that would be a great idea to improve, not only the aesthetics of the area, but then also improve housing opportunities for local businesses, whatever the case may be. We could bring a whole lot to the area just by making changes to those areas alone.
Any grocery stores? I know they have Save a Lot up there at North Charleston and West Montague.
Listen, we used to, like I said, I'm a longtime resident of this district. We used to have like three grocery stores that people could choose from, and now we're kind of limited. And so, what a lot of people don't know is the driving force behind a lot of these larger chains or whatever else is the median income for the area. They're paying attention to the median income of the area as to whether they want to move into it. And I've seen this happen with stores like the Whole Foods, one of them. They're paying attention to who's in that area before they decide to come to these areas. So, I would love to see us get something better than a Save a Lot, than just a Save a Lot. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But that's one of the things that uh, that's a big factor that a lot of people aren't aware of is the income of the neighborhoods as to what businesses wants to move in, because they're looking at profit as well.
Absolutely. Katesha Breland, thank you so much for your time again. Welcome to Quintin's Concepts.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome.